The day had started like any other, with the soft morning light spilling through the windows and the familiar sound of the city waking up outside. People moved along the streets in a steady rhythm, going about their daily lives, unaware that something unusual was about to unfold in the city hall that afternoon. Inside the grand hall, preparations were underway for a charity event that promised to gather some of the most talented musicians from the country. The room was filled with the subtle hum of excitement as organizers arranged chairs, tuned instruments, and whispered last-minute instructions to volunteers. Among the attendees was a woman who did not belong in such a grand setting, at least not in her own mind. She had always considered herself average, living a quiet life, and never imagining that she would find herself surrounded by such elegance and talent. She wore a simple dress, blending easily into the crowd, and carried with her a sense of nervous curiosity. She had been invited by a friend who insisted that everyone should experience this event, and though she had little interest in music at a professional level, she agreed. The main attraction of the event was a famous pianist, known worldwide for his brilliance and charisma. He had performed on stages that most people could only dream of, and his reputation as a master of the piano preceded him. The audience knew they were about to witness something extraordinary, and a gentle buzz of anticipation filled the air. The woman watched from the back, her heart beating a little faster as she admired the pianist from a distance. She had always appreciated music, but never with the expectation of standing out or being noticed. As the event began, the pianist took his place at the grand piano on the stage. The lights focused on him, and a hush fell over the crowd. He began to play, and the music filled the hall, rich and full, weaving through the audience and capturing everyone's attention. People leaned forward in their seats, listening to every note, mesmerized by the effortless grace of his performance. The woman felt a sense of wonder wash over her, the kind of awe that comes from seeing someone perform with pure passion and skill. She had never imagined she would be in the same room with someone whose talent could touch so deeply. The pianist, sensing the energy of the crowd, decided to add a touch of humor to the evening. He scanned the audience and his eyes landed on the woman. With a playful smile, he called her out, jokingly challenging her to play the piano. The words were light, almost teasing, meant to entertain the audience, but they struck the woman with surprise. She could feel every eye turning toward her, the room holding its collective breath, waiting for her reaction. Her initial instinct was to laugh nervously and decline, but there was something in the atmosphere that encouraged her to step forward. She hesitated for a moment, her hands tightening slightly at her sides. The pianist, still smiling, leaned back slightly, expecting a humorous refusal, maybe even a small stumble as she tried to navigate the challenge. The audience giggled softly, some whispering to their neighbors, imagining the scene unfolding as a playful joke. The woman, however, felt a curious spark inside her. Despite her nerves, there was a tiny voice suggesting she could at least try. She had played piano at home before, quietly without anyone watching, and the thought of sharing that hidden skill, even briefly, felt daring. The air seemed heavier with anticipation as she approached the piano. Each step felt amplified, every movement under the scrutiny of hundreds of eyes. The pianist watched with a mixture of amusement and intrigue, clearly not expecting anything remarkable, but genuinely curious about what would happen. The woman's heart raced, a mixture of fear and excitement bubbling inside her. She reached the piano and paused, glancing at the keys, remembering the small moments at home where she had pressed these keys in solitude, creating music that was personal and intimate. She placed her fingers on the keys, tentative at first. The pianist gave her an encouraging nod, his eyes reflecting a gentle curiosity rather than mockery. The audience leaned forward, sensing the tension, eager to see whether the joke would end in embarrassment or surprise. She took a deep breath, letting her hands hover above the keys, and in that moment, she realized something. It wasn't about proving herself or meeting anyone's expectations. It was simply about trying, about allowing herself to step into an unexpected moment and see where it might lead. The first key pressed produced a sound that resonated clearly in the hall. It was not perfect, nor was it grand, but it was honest and confident enough to silence the nervous whispers. The woman's fingers moved slowly, testing the waters, and then gradually, she began to feel the rhythm. The music that emerged was simple at first, hesitant and delicate, yet there was a warmth to it, a subtle melody that hinted at her hidden familiarity with the piano. The pianist, still observing, raised an eyebrow, sensing that the evening was about to take an unexpected turn. As she continued, the audience's reactions began to shift. Murmurs of surprise replaced the soft laughter, and eyes widened in astonishment. Some people exchanged glances, questioning what they were witnessing. The woman, encouraged by the subtle applause and the gentle smiles from the pianist, allowed herself to sink into the music. Her nerves gradually gave way to a quiet confidence, each note flowing more naturally than the last. What began as a nervous experiment was slowly transforming into something genuine and moving. The pianist, now fully engaged, watched with increasing respect. His initial amusement faded into intrigue, as he realized that the woman was not merely fumbling or making a mistake for the sake of the joke. There was a natural talent, a connection to the instrument that went beyond expectation. The audience, too, was captivated, leaning forward in their seats, completely absorbed in the surprising performance. The woman's average self-image began to crumble as she discovered a strength she had never fully recognized. Time seemed to stretch as she played, the music flowing effortlessly, carrying with it a sense of wonder and authenticity. The room, once filled with polite curiosity and quiet chatter, now held a collective breath, everyone drawn into the unexpected beauty of the moment. The pianist, usually the center of attention, now became an observer, amazed at the discovery unfolding before him. The woman, though unaware of her growing impact, felt a profound connection to the instrument and to the audience, realizing that her private practice at home had prepared her for this moment in ways she could never have anticipated. As the first part of her performance came to a gentle pause, there was a moment of silence. The audience, caught off guard by the depth of her talent, processed what they had just heard. The woman looked up, meeting the pianist's eyes, and saw an expression that mixed admiration, surprise, and respect. She smiled nervously, feeling a strange combination of pride and humility. The hall, filled moments ago with expectation of humor and perhaps embarrassment, now brimmed with anticipation for what would come next. This moment, simple yet profound, marked the beginning of a story that would surprise everyone, including herself. An ordinary woman had been called to play a piano as a joke, but the spark of something remarkable had already ignited. She had stepped into a space where fear and courage intertwined, discovering a hidden strength, and leaving a room full of people on the edge of astonishment. It was a reminder that life often presents opportunities in the most unexpected forms, and that ordinary moments can transform into extraordinary experiences when met with openness and courage. The event, the piano, and the joke were only the beginning. What followed would challenge perceptions, reveal hidden talent, and forever change the way everyone in that hall viewed what was possible. The woman sat at the grand piano, her hands resting lightly on the keys as the last echoes of her first notes faded into the hall. Her heart was still racing, but now it was joined by a strange sense of calm. The audience watched her with rapt attention, leaning forward in their seats, whispering to each other about what was happening. The pianist, who had expected a brief joke, now looked on with genuine curiosity. He had never seen someone approach the piano with such a mix of hesitation and quiet confidence. At first, her fingers moved cautiously, pressing each key with a gentle touch. She was careful not to make mistakes, but there was no fear in her movements, only a focus that came from years of playing alone in her small apartment. Memories of those quiet evenings flooded back, when the world outside was still, and she would experiment with melodies, letting the notes guide her without worrying about perfection. She had always enjoyed music, but never considered herself talented enough to perform in front of anyone. Now, faced with hundreds of eyes on her, those private moments of practice suddenly felt powerful and meaningful. The pianist leaned slightly forward, resting his chin in his hand, his eyes narrowing with interest. He could see that she was not improvising wildly, yet she was not simply playing a basic tune either. There was a natural rhythm to her movements, a fluidity that suggested she understood the piano in a way that went beyond casual practice. The audience shifted in their seats, some unable to hide their amazement. They had expected a funny, awkward moment, but instead, they were witnessing something quiet and beautiful. Her first few chords were tentative, like a painter testing colors on a blank canvas. She focused on listening, feeling each note resonate beneath her fingers, adjusting her pressure and timing as she went. Slowly, the hesitancy began to fade. She remembered a song she had learned years ago, simple but elegant, and decided to try it. The melody flowed from her hands with surprising ease, and the sound filled the hall with a gentle warmth. She glanced briefly at the pianist, who had stopped smiling and was now simply observing. He had no idea how she had learned so much in private, and he was beginning to realize that his joke had become something entirely unexpected. The audience, initially cautious, now seemed captivated. Some held their breath as if afraid to break the spell, while others whispered quietly to their neighbors, astonished at the skill emerging from someone they had assumed was ordinary. The woman's nerves remained, but they had transformed into something productive. She felt alive, more present than she had ever been during her quiet solo sessions at home. The music was no longer just notes on keys. It was an expression of herself, an extension of feelings she had rarely allowed to surface. As she continued, the complexity of her playing grew. Simple patterns gave way to more intricate sequences, her hands moving independently yet harmoniously. The audience began to notice the subtle changes, the small flourishes that indicated both understanding and creativity. A few people gasped softly, unable to hide their astonishment. Even the pianist, who had performed countless times on stages around the world, leaned back in his chair, impressed by the unexpected depth of her playing. What had started as a joke was turning into a performance that was commanding genuine respect. She felt a thrill she had never known. Every note, every chord seemed to connect her to the people in the room. The initial embarrassment she had feared was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence that grew with each measure. She could feel the energy of the audience, their surprise, their curiosity, and their appreciation. It fueled her, and her fingers danced across the keys with increasing assurance. The hall, which had moments ago been filled with polite expectation, now thrummed with anticipation, everyone waiting to see what would come next. The pianist finally spoke, not to interrupt, but softly enough for only a few nearby to hear. He muttered words of encouragement, acknowledging her ability in a way that seemed almost reverent. He had never imagined that someone chosen as a joke could evoke such a strong reaction. She ignored the spotlight momentarily, focusing instead on the music, letting her instincts guide her. Every note felt alive, every chord a reflection of her hidden dedication and personal journey with the piano. As she moved into the middle section of her performance, she felt a sudden surge of creativity. Without planning, her hands began to explore new patterns, creating a melody that felt entirely her own. The audience was now fully engaged, murmuring quietly, leaning in, some with wide-eyed wonder. People who had expected amusement were now experiencing awe. She realized that the moment had shifted from a playful challenge to a demonstration of what ordinary people can sometimes achieve when they are encouraged, even accidentally, to step out of their comfort zones. She paused for a brief moment, collecting her thoughts and breathing deeply. The sound of the piano filled the empty spaces between notes, and she felt a strange serenity. The initial tension, the nervous energy, was now replaced by a flow she could not explain. It was as if she had discovered a hidden path within herself, one that connected her emotions, her memories, and her instinctive sense of rhythm. She was no longer just playing. She was communicating, and she could feel the audience responding to the language of her music. The pianist had been watching every moment, his usual air of confidence replaced with curiosity and admiration. He recognized that she had something rare, a combination of intuition, practice, and genuine feeling. For someone who had believed herself to be average, the way she handled the piano was extraordinary. The audience, too, was responding, leaning closer, eyes fixed on her fingers, listening to the unexpected beauty of her performance. Whispers of disbelief and admiration spread quietly through the room, and the energy in the hall shifted from casual entertainment to something more profound. The woman continued to play, her fingers moving with increasing confidence. She had forgotten about the joke entirely, forgotten about the expectation of failure, and was lost in the music. Each note seemed to echo a story, every chord a reflection of her hidden skill. The audience, initially skeptical, was now completely captivated. Some were moved emotionally, some were amazed at the technical ability, and others simply smiled in quiet admiration. The hall, filled with hundreds of people, felt intimate in that moment, as if everyone was sharing a private understanding of the power of music. She realized that this moment was changing her perception of herself. She had always considered her playing a small, personal joy, something private and insignificant. Now it had become something larger, capable of touching the hearts of others, capable of surprising even a world-class pianist. She felt a mixture of humility and pride, a recognition that she had underestimated her own potential. Her music was no longer just for herself. It was for the audience, and in sharing it, she had discovered a new sense of purpose. As the first half of her performance came to a close, she allowed the last notes to linger, filling the hall with a sense of calm and expectation. The audience remained quiet for a moment, absorbing what they had just heard. The pianist finally allowed a smile to form, genuine and warm, reflecting his admiration for her courage and talent. He had expected to witness a brief, humorous moment, but instead, he had seen someone rise to a challenge in a way that was inspiring and remarkable. The woman felt a wave of relief mixed with exhilaration. She had survived the initial nerves and had found a way to express herself authentically in front of hundreds of people. The sense of ordinary expectation she had carried with her into the hall was gone, replaced by a recognition that she had something special, even if it was unexpected and hidden. She looked at the pianist and saw a new level of respect in his eyes, and she realized that she had begun a journey that could change not just the audience's perception, but her own understanding of herself. The room, once filled with polite anticipation, now hummed with quiet energy. People were leaning forward, eager to see what she would do next. She took a moment to breathe, feeling the weight of the audience's attention, and then allowed her fingers to move again. The music flowed naturally, a combination of memory, instinct, and emotion. The pianist watched, silent but attentive, as the woman transformed a simple challenge into a moment of real artistry. The first part of her journey had ended, but the promise of what was to come filled the air, leaving everyone in the hall eager for the next chapter of this extraordinary performance. The woman's confidence was growing with every note she played. Her fingers moved over the keys with a fluidity that surprised even her. The hall was filled with the gentle, resonant sound of her music, and the audience was completely captivated. What had begun as a nervous, uncertain experiment was now transforming into a performance that held everyone's attention. She could feel the energy of the room, the curiosity, the astonishment, and it gave her a sense of courage she had never known. She pressed down on the keys carefully, listening to each note as it blended with the next. There was a rhythm that came naturally, a melody forming that seemed both simple and complex at the same time. Her hands moved independently, creating harmonies that she had only played privately before. She realized that the music was not just sound. It was a conversation between herself and the piano, and through it with the audience as well. Every person in the hall seemed to lean a little closer, eager to catch every detail, every nuance of her playing. The pianist, who had been watching with a mix of curiosity and surprise, now showed a subtle sign of respect. His initial smirk, meant to tease and amuse, had disappeared. He leaned back slightly, observing the unfolding talent. He could see that she was not relying on luck or improvisation alone. There was a clear understanding of rhythm, melody, and emotion in her playing. He had performed for thousands of people, yet he felt a genuine sense of wonder at what he was witnessing. The ordinary woman in front of him had transformed into something extraordinary. The audience, too, was fully engaged. Whispers of disbelief spread quietly from person to person. Some were watching in stunned silence, trying to process what they were seeing. Others exchanged glances, silently acknowledging that this was not what they had expected. The humor of the initial challenge had vanished, replaced by awe and admiration. People who had come for entertainment were now experiencing something much more powerful, something that spoke to the unexpected potential in ordinary people. The woman's hands began to move faster, but with control and precision. She was no longer hesitant, no longer doubting herself. The melody that emerged was lively and expressive, each chord striking with purpose. She could feel the emotion behind each note, a reflection of her journey and her connection to the instrument. For a moment, she forgot about the audience, the pianist, and the challenge. She was immersed in the music, letting it guide her through a story only she could tell. The pianist leaned forward slightly, his interest piqued. He noticed subtle dynamics in her playing, the way she emphasized certain notes, the way she paused to let chords resonate. He had never expected such nuance from someone he assumed would be inexperienced. There was a raw authenticity to her performance, a quality that could not be taught. It was clear that her hours of private practice had cultivated something deeper than skill alone. It was instinct, emotion, and connection all at once. As the music continued, the audience began to react more openly. Some whispered in astonishment, others let out small gasps, and a few clapped softly at moments that particularly impressed them. Their reactions only encouraged the woman further. Each note seemed to give her more confidence, more freedom to explore her abilities. She experimented slightly with tempo, adding gentle variations that enhanced the melody without losing its integrity. The pianist noticed and smiled faintly, appreciating her creativity. He had expected a performance that was merely adequate at best, but he was witnessing a musician with real talent, a performer who could touch hearts even without formal recognition. She paused briefly to catch her breath, looking down at the keys and then at the audience. The hall was silent, everyone holding their attention on her. It was an unusual experience, being watched so intently, yet she did not feel fear. Instead, she felt a sense of responsibility to honor the moment. This was not about proving herself, but about sharing the music she had nurtured privately for so long. The audience seemed to sense this sincerity, and it created a connection that was both fragile and profound. Taking a deep breath, she began again, this time moving into a more complex section. Her fingers navigated intricate patterns, each movement deliberate yet natural. The sound was rich and expressive, filling the hall with a resonance that seemed to linger even after the notes faded. The pianist, usually the one commanding attention, now watched as the woman created her own space on the stage. He could see the focus in her eyes, the way her hands moved with intention, and he realized he had underestimated her. She was not ordinary. She was exceptional in her own quiet way. The audience's astonishment grew. People who had initially laughed at the joke now sat in complete silence, unable to believe the skill they were witnessing. Some leaned forward, as if trying to capture every detail with their eyes, while others closed their eyes briefly, letting the music wash over them. The atmosphere in the hall shifted from casual entertainment to something more intimate and moving. Everyone felt the authenticity of her performance, the unexpected beauty of a hidden talent revealed in a moment that no one could have predicted. Her hands glided over the keys with increasing ease. She could feel the music flowing through her, each note a reflection of her emotions and experiences. She began to experiment with dynamics, playing some sections softly to create tension and others with strength to convey excitement. The audience responded subconsciously, leaning in during softer moments and relaxing during louder passages. There was an unspoken conversation between the performer and the listeners, one that did not require words. The pianist recognized this connection and felt a genuine admiration for her ability to engage and move people so effortlessly. She smiled faintly, realizing that she had surpassed her own expectations. What began as a joke and a challenge had become a defining moment for her, a realization of what she could achieve when she embraced courage and allowed herself to perform authentically. She thought briefly about her private practice sessions, the quiet evenings spent exploring melodies alone, and she understood how those moments had prepared her for this stage. The music was not just skill. It was a culmination of experience, emotion, and intuition. The pianist, now fully attentive, could not hide his surprise. He had faced many talented musicians in his life, but there was something different about this woman. She played not for recognition, not for applause, but because the music was an extension of herself. Her performance was honest, unfiltered, and deeply expressive. He could see the sincerity in her eyes, the focus in her movements, and he felt a rare moment of respect for someone he had initially thought of as merely an audience participant. As she reached the climax of her piece, the hall was completely still. Every listener was absorbed, caught in the unexpected beauty of her playing. The woman felt a rush of exhilaration and vulnerability at the same time. Each note carried the weight of her hidden dedication, the countless hours of practice that no one had ever seen. She was no longer just performing. She was revealing a part of herself, sharing something deeply personal in a way that touched everyone present. When the last note lingered and faded into silence, there was a moment of collective breath-holding. The audience seemed unsure how to respond, caught between awe and disbelief. The pianist finally leaned forward, clapping softly at first, then more emphatically, followed by the rest of the audience. Applause erupted, filling the hall with energy and admiration. The woman smiled, her cheeks flushed, a mix of relief and joy washing over her. She had faced the challenge, stepped into the unknown, and emerged not only unscathed but triumphant in a way she had never imagined. In that moment, the ordinary woman had become extraordinary in the eyes of everyone present. She had shown that talent can be hidden, waiting for the right moment to emerge, and that courage can transform a simple challenge into something remarkable. The pianist approached her afterward, his expression a mix of respect and surprise. He had intended the challenge as a playful joke, but it had revealed something beautiful, something that would leave a lasting impression on everyone in the hall. The music she had created had a resonance far beyond the notes themselves. It touched hearts, inspired admiration, and proved that sometimes, the most unexpected people can achieve the most extraordinary things. The woman had now found her rhythm, her hands moving across the keys with a confidence that surprised even her. The music she was creating was no longer cautious or tentative. It was expressive, full of emotion and technical skill. Each note she played seemed to carry a story, a reflection of her hidden dedication, and the audience felt it deeply. What had begun as a joke challenge now held everyone in the hall completely captivated. Her fingers danced across the piano keys with a sense of freedom, yet they maintained precision and control. She added subtle flourishes, small ornaments that elevated the music and showcased her growing confidence. The audience could not help but lean forward, completely absorbed in the performance. Whispers of amazement spread quietly, but the room was dominated by the beauty of her playing. Each chord, each sequence of notes, was perfectly balanced, creating a harmony that was both delicate and powerful. The pianist, who had issued the challenge as a light-hearted joke, was now fully focused. He watched her every movement, recognizing the depth of her talent. His smirk had vanished, replaced by genuine admiration and curiosity. He could see the passion in her eyes, the concentration in her posture, and the natural flow of her fingers. He realized that he had underestimated her completely. The ordinary woman he had teased was demonstrating something rare and extraordinary. The audience, too, was completely transformed. Their initial expectations of humor or embarrassment were gone, replaced by awe and respect. People exchanged looks of astonishment, shaking their heads as if trying to comprehend the skill they were witnessing. Some held their hands over their mouths in surprise. Others closed their eyes to better absorb the music. Every sound from the piano seemed to resonate with them, creating an invisible connection between performer and listener. The woman felt a deep sense of presence. She was no longer aware of the crowd or the spotlight. Her focus was entirely on the music and the piano beneath her hands. She allowed herself to explore more complex passages, moving between notes with agility and grace. Her understanding of rhythm and melody guided her naturally, and she could feel the emotional impact of her performance growing with each measure. What had started as a nervous challenge had transformed into a moment of true artistry. As the music swelled, she played with increasing intensity, alternating between soft, delicate sections and powerful, resonant passages. The audience responded intuitively, leaning in during softer moments and reacting to the crescendo with subtle gasps and murmurs. The hall seemed to pulse with energy, the sound of the piano filling every corner. Even the pianist, who had performed for audiences around the world, could not help but feel moved by the depth of her expression. He recognized that she had a rare ability to touch people through her playing, a talent that went beyond technique alone. The woman's fingers moved effortlessly, guided by instinct and practice, weaving a melody that was both intricate and emotive. She had found a balance between technical precision and emotional expression, creating music that was sophisticated yet deeply personal. The audience was silent, listening intently, hanging on to every note. Some people felt tears welling up in their eyes, others smiled in quiet admiration, and a few exchanged glances as if sharing a private understanding of what they were witnessing. The atmosphere was electric, charged with the magic of discovery and unexpected talent. The pianist approached quietly, not to interrupt, but to observe more closely. He had spent years on stages with some of the finest musicians, yet he had never seen someone rise to a challenge in this manner. The woman, who had seemed ordinary and unassuming just moments ago, was now revealing a level of skill that could rival seasoned performers. He felt a mix of surprise, respect, and a little humility. This was not just a display of ability. It was a revelation of hidden potential, a reminder that talent can be found in the most unexpected places. The woman allowed herself a moment of reflection, taking a deep breath as she played a particularly challenging passage. Her mind was calm, her focus unwavering. She felt a sense of connection to the piano, to the music, and to the audience. It was a rare experience to feel so fully in the moment, to know that every note mattered and that the listeners were truly engaged. She realized that she had stepped into a space where fear and self-doubt no longer controlled her, replaced by courage and expression. As she moved into the final section of her performance, she began to play with even greater emotion, letting the music flow naturally from her heart. The chords were strong and resonant, yet she maintained the subtlety that gave the piece its beauty. Her hands glided effortlessly, and her fingers seemed to anticipate the next notes before her mind even thought of them. The audience could sense the depth of feeling in her performance, and they responded with quiet awe and respect. Even those who had been skeptical or distracted earlier were now fully present, captivated by the unexpected talent before them. The pianist, now standing nearby, could not hide his admiration. He watched her with a mix of awe and reflection, recognizing that his joke had inadvertently revealed something extraordinary. He realized that she had a natural connection to the instrument, a combination of skill, instinct, and emotional expression that few possess. Her playing was no longer just a performance. It was an experience, a story told through sound that left a lasting impression on everyone present. The audience could feel the climax approaching. The music rose and fell, weaving intricate patterns that were both technically impressive and emotionally compelling. Every person in the hall felt the impact, some leaning forward, others closing their eyes, completely absorbed in the performance. The woman's focus was absolute. She was aware of the audience, but she was also in a world of her own creation, letting the piano guide her. She could sense the energy in the room, and it fueled her, allowing her to play with even greater freedom and expressiveness. As the final notes approached, she allowed herself to play with both strength and delicacy, blending technical mastery with emotional depth. The chords resonated throughout the hall, filling it with a sense of completion and fulfillment. The pianist watched silently, captivated by the transformation that had taken place. What had begun as a playful challenge was now a profound display of talent and artistry, leaving a mark on everyone present. The audience was spellbound, their anticipation giving way to admiration and amazement. When the last note lingered and faded into silence, there was a collective pause. No one moved immediately. Everyone seemed to be processing what they had just experienced. Then, slowly, the applause began, starting with soft claps and building into a thunderous ovation. The audience rose to their feet, cheering and clapping, some even whistling in appreciation. The woman smiled, overwhelmed but proud, feeling a mixture of relief and exhilaration. She had not only faced the challenge but had turned it into a performance that touched everyone in the hall. The pianist approached her, his expression one of genuine admiration and respect. He extended his hand, and she shook it, both sharing a quiet understanding of what had just happened. His words were sincere, praising her talent, her courage, and her ability to transform a simple challenge into something extraordinary. The audience continued to cheer, acknowledging the unexpected brilliance of her performance. In that moment, the ordinary woman had revealed herself to be anything but ordinary. Her hidden talent, nurtured in private and unrecognized until now, had captivated an audience and surprised a world-class pianist. The experience was a powerful reminder that potential can exist in unexpected places, and that courage, even when prompted by a playful challenge, can lead to extraordinary moments. The music she had created would linger in the minds of everyone present, a testament to the beauty of hidden talent and the transformative power of embracing an unexpected opportunity. After the last note lingered in the air, the woman slowly withdrew her hands from the piano keys, feeling a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and exhilaration. The applause of the audience continued, louder now, some people standing to show their admiration. She looked out at the crowd, noticing the astonished expressions, the wide eyes, the subtle nods of appreciation. She had entered the hall believing herself to be ordinary, yet in this moment, she felt the extraordinary impact of her performance. The pianist approached her once more, this time with a demeanor of genuine respect. His earlier amusement had transformed into admiration, and he congratulated her sincerely, acknowledging the talent he had not expected. His words were not just polite compliments but reflections of real surprise and recognition. He had intended a joke, a light-hearted challenge, but what had unfolded was far beyond anything he could have imagined. He spoke about her technique, her emotional depth, and the way she connected with the audience, highlighting aspects of her playing that even she had not fully realized in herself. The woman felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet pride mingled with humility. She had always enjoyed playing in private, thinking of it as a personal comfort, a hobby for herself. She had never imagined sharing it publicly, especially in front of a world-class pianist and an audience filled with strangers. And yet, in this brief performance, she had discovered something profound. Not just her ability to play, but her capacity to inspire, to move, and to command attention through her artistry. The audience continued to applaud, some members rising from their seats, others clapping enthusiastically, unable to contain their admiration. There were whispers of astonishment, discussions about the unexpected talent that had been revealed. People shared their surprise at how someone who seemed so ordinary could perform with such skill and emotional depth. Cameras discreetly captured moments of the performance, recording the expressions, the gestures, and the intensity of the music. The story of her talent, once hidden, was now beginning to spread beyond the walls of the hall. The woman stepped away from the piano, still feeling the lingering thrill of her achievement. She allowed herself a small smile, realizing that she had been part of something extraordinary. What had started as a playful challenge had become a moment that not only changed the way the audience viewed her, but also changed the way she viewed herself. She felt a new sense of confidence, a realization that she was capable of more than she had allowed herself to believe. The pianist remained nearby, discussing her performance with a few members of the audience and sharing his genuine amazement. He spoke of how rare it was to witness talent that was unpolished by formal recognition yet so rich in authenticity. The woman listened, humbled and grateful, as he recounted details of her playing that had impressed him the most. His praise was not just about skill. It was about courage, presence, and the emotional impact she had created. For the first time, she realized that her private dedication and quiet practice had value beyond personal satisfaction. It had the power to touch others. People in the audience approached her afterward, offering compliments, asking questions, and expressing their admiration. Some spoke of the surprise and inspiration they had felt. Others wondered how she had developed such talent without formal training. She answered modestly, emphasizing that she had only played for herself, not expecting recognition or attention. Her humility only heightened the admiration of those around her. Each interaction reinforced the idea that her performance had created a lasting impression, leaving people inspired and reflective. News of the performance spread quickly, and by the next day, the story of the ordinary woman who had stunned a famous pianist was circulating online. Videos and photos captured the surprise, the music, and the reactions of the audience. Comments from people far and wide expressed astonishment and admiration. Many related to her story, recognizing the power of hidden talent and the courage it takes to step into the unknown. She read some of the messages, feeling a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. Her ordinary life had suddenly intersected with something extraordinary, and she began to understand the ripple effect of her actions. The pianist reached out to her later, inviting her to collaborate on future performances, suggesting opportunities that could allow her talent to reach wider audiences. While she had not sought recognition, the chance to continue playing and sharing her music sparked a new sense of excitement. She considered the possibilities, not for fame, but for the joy of connecting with others through her music. The experience had awakened a new perspective, a realization that sometimes life presents unexpected moments that can redefine personal boundaries and open doors to experiences previously unimagined. The woman reflected on the journey from nervous hesitation to confident mastery. She remembered the initial challenge, the teasing smile of the pianist, and the uncertainty that had accompanied her first steps to the piano. She realized how fear and doubt had been transformed into courage and self-expression. Each note she had played carried more than sound. It carried her story, her dedication, and her willingness to embrace the moment fully. She understood that talent alone was not enough. Courage and openness were equally important in revealing it to the world. Her friends and family, who had known her as quiet and reserved, were amazed by what she had achieved. They celebrated her courage, and many expressed how inspired they felt by her journey. She received messages from people she had never met, praising her skill and the way she had stepped beyond her comfort zone. It became clear that her story resonated with many, showing that even ordinary people could surprise themselves and others when they embraced opportunity and courage. In the following days, she continued to play, not out of obligation or expectation, but for the joy and connection it brought. She found new confidence in her abilities and a renewed passion for music. Each performance, small or large, reminded her of the unexpected moment that had changed her life. She cherished the memory of the hall, the audience, and the famous pianist who had unintentionally given her the chance to reveal her hidden talent. That moment had shifted her perception of herself and had shown her the power of taking a chance, no matter how ordinary one might feel. The impact of her performance lingered far beyond the hall that evening. People spoke of it for weeks, sharing their admiration and reflecting on the unexpected beauty of talent revealed in an ordinary person. The woman herself carried the memory as a quiet source of strength and inspiration. She had stepped into an unknown space, faced the challenge with openness, and emerged with a new understanding of what she was capable of. The music she had created was a testament to courage, authenticity, and the surprising potential that exists within everyone, waiting for the right moment to shine. The pianist often recalled that evening with a sense of wonder and humility. He had intended a joke, yet it had resulted in an unforgettable performance that touched him and countless others. The woman's talent, hidden until that day, had revealed itself in a way that transcended expectation and left a lasting mark on all who witnessed it. Their interaction was a reminder that talent and courage can appear when least expected, and that sometimes ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things simply by stepping forward and embracing an opportunity. Ultimately, the story of that day became more than just a performance. It was a celebration of hidden potential, of courage, and of the power of music to connect people. The ordinary woman who had once doubted herself discovered a new understanding of her abilities and a profound sense of confidence. The audience, the pianist, and the world beyond that hall shared in the revelation, inspired by her journey. What began as a playful joke had transformed into a life-changing moment, one that reminded everyone present that greatness often emerges in the most unexpected forms and that ordinary people can, in the right moment, do something truly remarkable.